So when it comes to playing the bass, are picks for sissies or do real men use them too? Believe it or not, that's a I don't know about legitimate, but common debate that occurs amongst newer students when arguing about the bass. And the reality is there is no right way to play the bass. Um, Pick is fine. Fingers are fine. Within fingers, there's dozens of different ways to play. There's slap. There's the walking style that most of us started off with and stick with. There's strumming, and the more you can do all of the various techniques that are out there, um, there's tap. The more you master all those various styles of playing, the better, more proficient, more professional player you're going to be. Um, I am in the case of I am not very good with a pick. In fact, I'm quite horrible with a pick. I learned how to play with my fingers because I had never used a pick before, and it was one less complication, one less reason to get frustrated and quit. So I just bypassed that failure point altogether. Now that I've gotten fairly decent at playing, I have several times tried to go back and learn to use the pick, and my stutter stops and starts with that have been just like they were when I first tried to learn the bass. I've gone screw this and throw the pick across the wall and be totally pissed off because I can't play the song that I've completely mastered um, with my fingers. I can't play it right with a pick, and it just frustrates the heck out of me. So, not to act like a spoiled child, but we all have our moments, right? So I totally get why someone who's never touched a string instrument picks it up and tries to use a pick and says, "This just sucks. I'm going to use my fingers. This makes no sense." Um, I understand that line of thinking. I understand wanting to use your fingers, and there's nothing wrong with it. However, if you are bound and determined to use a pick, we should talk about some things that justify using a pick, why you would want to learn how to use a pick, why it even matters, and what to look for when looking for a pick for the bass. So the most common reason you're going to want to learn to use a pick, especially if you're just starting off, is that you're transitioning from the six-string electric guitar world into the bass world, and now that's one less thing you have to relearn. So go ahead and use a pick. The only difference is you've got to make the adjustment between the thickness of the strings and the spacing of the strings. But other than that, you should be able to use a pick just fine. You should be able to make that adjustment pretty quickly. One thing you won't be able to do is use the exact same pick, those super thin picks that you're using on your six-string guitar to get in between those tiny little spaces of those strings. That's not going to work for you on a bass. Uh, there's too much ply and give in the thinness of that pick that you're using. It's going to give before your strings wear. So what you need is either a thick weight category or a heavy weight category, thickness category of a pick. Now, this is why you've been staring at this Ernie Ball page picture of a pick. Is just not so you just have a picture of a pick, but so we can discuss about it. They categorize those differently than other brands. Each brand is different. This one has thin, medium, and heavy. And then in this particular style pick, they're offering different colors. Um, I own some of these camo ones, so that's why I selected on this for heavy. Now, heavy, you're probably thinking, well, wouldn't that be extra thick? No, it's only 0.94 millimeters in thickness, which puts it right in the middle of what would be considered a thick or heavy string. This category ranges from, this according to the Google gods, 0.85 millimeter all the way up to 1.2 millimeter, and thickness would count as a thick pick rather than being extra thick or being medium or thin. Or heavy is the term that Ernie Ball uses. Why am I showing you Ernie Ball over other brands? Well, I trust this brand. I've used this brand. I like this brand. I own this exact pick. I own dozens of this exact pick. Bought several bags of them in the store. I didn't pick it because it was camo necessarily. It just stood out when I was rushing past the, bass in hand, going to buy it and needed to grab some picks. Grabbed some off the rack, saw that they were the big H on there, knew that they would work with my bass, grabbed them, ran out the door. I've tried using the thin ones that came with the six-string guitar. They're just a nightmare. They're not going to work. What materials do I like? These are cellulose, which is my favorite. It is a semi-smooth, semi-matte finish on these things. It's very solid feeling, right? Very plasticky feeling, which generates a tone that I prefer. So it's not necessarily the feel of it that I prefer, but the tone that I get when using it versus using something like a Derlin. Derlin is still a plasticky material, but it is a little bit more rubbery, a little bit more soft. And the downside to those, while I like the feel of them, they're very comfortable. They don't generate the tone that I want when striking my string. Haven't tried metal, haven't tried bone, haven't tried wood. You name it, if it's out there, somebody has made a pick out of it. There are various pick shapes. This is a teardrop shape, so they call that teardrop style. They come in round, they come in other sizes, triangle size, I think. Um, I don't know. There's lots of options out there. This is what's most common. This is what I'm used to. When you imagine a pick and say pick to somebody, this is what they're going to picture in their head. Um, talk about some professionals that are known mostly for using a pick. You know, if you're a professional level, you can do it all. But these guys are mostly known for using a pick. Paul McCartney of the Beatles um, inspired millions of people to pick up the bass and play, inspired millions of people just to become musicians in general. He almost exclusively uses a pick. You can hear it in his songs. A song of his that is very easy to play using a pick would be, it's easier using a pick than not using a pick, would be Helter Skelter. So the speed there is great. Um, lots of, like we mentioned, death metal, um, heavy metal, punk rock, even some country, um, lots of alternative and grunge. Those guys are going to be using a pick. And if you want to get the sound and tonal quality and consistency that they're getting for in their songs, you're going to need to use a pick in order to do that. It's not that you can't be consistent, that you can't get great sound using your fingers. You're just not going to sound the same as if you're using a pick. And a great example of that is Mike Dirnt of Green Day. Um, if you listen to the song "When I Come Around" by Green Day, um, his that the bass tone in that tone can only be achieved with a pick. It's just you can get really really close, but without a pick, it's just not going to sound the same. You can hear the pick tonal qualities in that bass line. In fact, most of his songs, you can tell he's using a pick. You can even tell what kind of bass he's playing. He's getting the very natural tone that you can only get out of a Fender Precision bass. When he's playing, you can hear it. You can hear that's what he's playing. You can tell he's playing a pick. Um, now, running out and buying a set of picks and running out and buying a Fender Precision bass, are you going to sound like Mike Dirnt? No, you're going to need to practice. I mean, the single biggest thing you can do to sound like a decent bass player is practice, practice, practice. You know, be, be able to play. That's how you get to play. But the equipment shouldn't be overlooked. I mean, if you're looking for a specific tone, the equipment will help with that, right? That's after you already know how to play. What equipment you're using will help you get the tone that you want. Players most known not for using a pick that do use a pick. Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. He is most known for his finger style, known for slap. He doesn't just play slap. He plays slap. He does the walking fingering. He does some strumming, and he will occasionally use a pick. And he will occasionally do all of that all within the same song, as will many other players. So no, using a pick is not just for sissies. Using a pick is for manly men too. So, okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I just will say I am a big fan of Ernie Ball. I am not sponsored by Ernie Ball. That's not why you've been staring at the Ernie Ball logo and Ernie Ball pick there. It's just this is the one that I recommend, and it was easy for me to get in there and see the size there on the back of the card to talk about what size ranges are good. It's a good reminder for me to mention that. It's also a good reminder for me to talk about cellulose. But I am a big fan of Ernie Ball. I use their straps. I'm going to talk about those in another recommended video. What straps should you get? I use their strap locks. I highly recommend those. I recommend strap locks in general, but of the strap locks there that I trust and that I know when I click them on there, I'm not going to be confused into thinking that they're on when they're really not, and that they just fall off as soon as I try to let that strap support the weight of the bass, and now I've got a giant crack in my bass. I've never dropped a bass, knock on, metal, I guess in this case. But um, you know, amazing products that you can trust, good quality. They always fit me. Their straps, for example, I'm a heavy set guy, and their straps are a little bit longer. Um, have the ability to get longer as well as just down to being super small. That they can adjust out to longer. They use a little bit more material and a little more forgiving than some of the cheaper straps out there. So I know if I buy an Ernie Ball strap, it's going to fit me, despite the fact that I can afford to lose a few pounds. And I know that it'll be good quality and it's going to hold up and that it'll last longer than I will, and that base probably will in my collection before I get bored and decide I want something else and turn around and sell it. So anyhow, I hope this is helpful for you. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. All three help us considerably and encourage us to make more videos.